So, Matt, welcome to our show, and thank you very much for your time.
I'm glad to be here.
Excellent. So now, before we get into the Medway Center, the new center your company is opening, give an overview about your company. I know it was founded in 1952, and what are the centers you own and manage, and what is new happening at the company?
So we are a third generation family business. So the
Hmm.
founding in 1952 was by my grandparents. My parents took over in the late 70s, early 80s, and retired. My father retired in 2000. We're actually unique in a family business in that we had an outside CEO who bridged the gap between my father and I.
Hmm.
Um, and so, third generation family businesses are somewhat unique. The
Absolutely.
fact that we've gotten to this point. So when my grandparents and parents ran the business, it started as a single nursing home in Northborough, Massachusetts, and over time has now grown to 10 locations in central Massachusetts. The overall kind of the portfolio that we have consists of independent living, assisted living with a large concentration in memory care, skilled nursing, and we
Hmm.
actually have two child cares. As a result of the pandemic, we closed two adult day health programs.
Hmm.
The one was in our Natick location and the other in Northbridge. And then
How many units your company owns, roughly, if you go away?
So we have on any given day, what we say is we house about 1,200 residents. And
Hmm.
so that's a combination of the skilled nursing, the assisted and independent. And in addition to that, we care for almost 1,000 people in the community through our VNA, our home health and private duty. So what makes our company unique is that we've kind of vertically integrated all of the post-acute services. So we have a complete post-acute continuum, and our home health, hospice, and private duty do a tremendous amount of work supporting the residents that live in our communities.
Okay. Now, the COVID, of course, has a devastating impact on the senior housing industry, and having that in the back of our mind, you are opening a new one in Medway, right?
Correct.
So tell us about that, how that came about, and yeah, what it is going to offer.
Okay. So in Medway, we're offering the Willows, which is our independent community, in Whitney Place, which is our assisted living. So it's the Willows in Whitney Place at Medway. That property is a 60-acre parcel of land off of Village Street in Medway that abuts the Charles River.
Hmm.
And on that 60 acres, we built a 330,000 square foot main building that houses 100 assisted living residences with, again, a focus on dementia care, but we do provide traditional assisted living care there, as well as 50 independent apartments. And on the back side of the building, we do what we call attached cottages. So our attached cottages there's 15 of them on the building, which are almost 2,000 square foot homes where you would drive up to the what you would see as the front of the house, and that has a front door, porch, and in your own private entrance. But the back of the building is actually attached to the main building. And so
Hmm.
rather than opening up a back door and having a back porch or a backyard, you open up your back door to your home, and it enters into an interior hallway, and that hallway brings you down along our parking garage. We have a heated and climate controlled parking garage, and then it allows you to access the services in the main building. So you maintain the independence in the experience of living in your own home, but you have direct access to services regardless of weather, or in a lot of instances we see it with couples. A husband or a wife may be somewhat infirmed, and that you can much easier access the services in the main building. So
And you are
that's
accepting the residents right now, right?
correct. Our first resident, we have 28 people waiting to move in,
Hmm.
and we're taking our first residents on Friday, July 16th, is when we'll start the move-in process.
Excellent.
And what
Now,
I'm
one,
calling it, Apendra, I'm calling it kind of phase one, and
okay.
that's the main building. And then on the remaining land, we're building 52 cottage homes on that property, a pavilion, which will be open to the community, as well as a medical office building on the front
So
of the
what is the
property.
timeline about those buildings? Can you talk about that?
They're in development now. We're
Mhm.
working with a partner now to start developing the cottages. So I'd hope we'd be in the ground certainly within the next 6 to 12 months to starting the cottages.
And the medical building?
The medical building will be done. I don't have an estimated time of when we'll start that, but that will be coming. We're working on. COVID delayed that for us.
Sure.
It really is that we had an anchor tenant. We were working with a hospital system to be an anchor tenant in the medical office building, and they pulled away during the middle of COVID. And we're trying to restart those
So
conversations.
now talking about COVID also, I mean, lately we have been watching that the most companies are having issues with staffing, and especially it is much more severe in the senior housing industry. So have you faced that staffing issue at your firm, and how you are dealing with that?
Yeah, of course. I think we're in terms of staffing, we're no different really than what the rest of the senior housing and healthcare space is experiencing. And I think it's important to note that pre-COVID in Massachusetts, nursing home vacancy rates for your hands-on caregivers, your licensed nurses and your nursing assistants was at about 16%, and
Mm.
that's grown as a result of having been through and lived through COVID. We've had a lot of staff that um, frankly, I think just became a little bit more burned out and have taken a break or have walked away from that career at the moment. So I will say that because we operate the skilled nursing, the assisted living, and the seniors housing, that we do see there's a difference in recruiting and retaining staff. So in Medway, for example, as we're opening that building next month, that recruiting for those jobs has actually been easier compared to what it takes for us to recruit in a nursing home.
Sure.
People see what we're about to build in Medway. They come and tour the building and just see how amazing it is and how different it is from what they've experienced in the past. And they really are jumping at the opportunity to work in that campus.
Can you also talk a little bit about senior occupancy in pre-COVID time and now how it is in general?
Yeah, occupancy was strong pre-COVID. We're starting to see, and obviously for a lot of providers it plummeted. It's no secret that seniors were most impacted in terms of illness and death from COVID. That in most instances, I think that people saw a decline in inquiries and people looking to move in. So we went almost a year with a hold on admissions. So the decline in occupancy, especially in seniors housing, it isn't necessarily because COVID ravaged the buildings like it did in nursing homes. I think the decline in occupancy was the fact that the demand just shut off, that people stopped moving in. And so
Mm.
now that we've gotten to the point where we have widespread vaccinations, that we're not seeing outbreaks and occurrences in seniors housing, we're seeing a rebound in terms of demand. So our occupancy dropped to, in some buildings, mid 70% from
Mm.
93%. And now we're starting to see those occupancies rebound. As we talked about it in the sales side, inquiry and new customer engagement is at pre-pandemic levels now for us.
Great, excellent. Now, how COVID also transformed the senior living buildings as well as their operations?
It transformed ours in a I think a much different way than most, because we created a COVID recovery center at one of our nursing homes in Worcester.
Mhm.
And what it allowed us to do was actually isolate COVID cases out of anywhere in our portfolio. And so if you
Mhm.
were living in independent living, or if you were living in assisted or even a nursing home and you tested positive for COVID, we moved you to that central location. And as a result, it created very little disruption for the residents living in those buildings. So our independent livings, the one in Worcester had no cases at all. The
Mhm.
one in Westboro only had a few. We had about, I think it was 10 cases total over the entire pandemic. And as those people tested positive, we could move them out for isolation and healthcare, which was a huge positive, because I think in assisted living, especially, and also in an independent living, it's tough when you tell someone they have to isolate in their apartment by themselves for 14 days.
Sure.
And often what we saw in our industry with people were literally, kind of leaving food at the door, knocking on it and leaving, and people had to stay. And we were able to put people in isolation spaces that were specific for COVID. And so our residents could walk around, they could socialize, they could eat meals together, because they weren't worried about infecting anybody else. The staff were all protected, but the residents didn't have to take the same precautions. So it was a much better lifestyle for them. Of course, on the technology side, because of the COVID Recovery Center, we had a relationship with Ava Robotics. So we used our first robot in the company, and that you could actually virtually drive the robot to any room in the COVID neighborhood, and physicians and families could visit through the robot, which is a neat experience. And of course, we all use Zoom, and we all started to be able to go remote. In a service business, that our business is actually hands-on care. That was, there was a lot of work that we did in terms of trying to be there for our staff and be supportive of our staff, so that a lot of our innovation wasn't necessarily technological in terms of what you've seen and heard from other businesses. I think a lot of ours was refocusing on how important our frontline staff was and making sure we were there to support them.
Sure. And now also lately we have started, hearing that more and more people are talking about affordable senior housing. So have you come across those type of issues, or how?
So affordable senior living is a very difficult puzzle to solve.
Okay.
And again, because of and I think everyone can understand, especially in Massachusetts, just getting the cost of the land, the development costs, and the building built creates a floor for expense, right? That you're not going to drop below that, plus adding labor-intensive services on top of that, right? So when you start to talk about assisted living, there's a tremendous amount of service that's built into that structure. So the way to create the affordable senior living is that you have to acquire the land or the building in a very, very inexpensive manner. And you have to have less services than more, because that reduces your all-in cost. So I've listened to a lot of conversations and read a lot of articles on it over the last year and a half or 2 years. But I haven't seen anyone who's really been able to attack that, especially in the Northeast, attack that problem head on, because our real estate is so expensive. It really is hard to make things affordable unless you have, outside funding and support to do that.
And your all properties are only in Massachusetts, right?
Correct.
Okay, I just want to make sure. Now, your last word on the industry as well as on your Medway opening.
So the Medway opening, we invite anyone who's watching this broadcast to come down and see it. You cannot understand how far out out of the norm this community really is in what we're doing, in terms of we're the first one, certainly in the Northeast and maybe in the country, that has a full liquor license. That we're doing a lot of local and homegrown foods through the dining. We have an incredibly unique exercise program. We don't use the term seniors in this building. It's just your lifestyle. It's just your food program, and it's just your exercise program. But it focuses on breathing. It focuses a lot more on movement rather than physical exercise. And we do a lot of work with this program in the pool. It's incredibly dynamic, and things like that haven't been done before. We call it retirement reimagined.
Now, Matt, I have not heard of a liquor license at the senior living. So just tell me about that. I'm very curious about that.
So when we built a few years ago, 2017, when we opened Whitney Place in Sharon, one of the challenges and one of the kind of innovations that we had was anytime dining. So rather than offering, we still offered 3 meals a day at specific times, and you could come down for the normal service, but we left the dining room open for residents and their friends and families to come in and use it anytime. And we've taken that concept to a new level in Medway because of the sheer size of the building. It's 330,000 square feet. It's anywhere, anytime dining. And part of that also is now the liquor license. So the way I look at it is that the challenge here is that people always say they move to a town or to a street or to a home. And until they come to one of our communities, and then they say they move in. And this idea of moving in to me is that you're separating yourself from your friends and your community in a way that has a negative connotation to it. And what we're trying to do with the Willows at Medway is say, no, you're moving to the Willows at Medway, and all your friends and family are welcome. The building is so big because we overbuilt a lot of the community spaces, anticipating that families are going to be coming in to visit there rather than residents leaving. And I look at a typical family structure where you have a matriarch or patriarch that's always hosted. The families may go there for Sunday brunch or Monday dinners or for every holiday. And the mother or father of the family have always hosted. And when you get there, maybe the kids play in the backyard and maybe they're using the swing set that you used as a kid. And then maybe your father throws food on the grill, or maybe your mother cooks a favorite meal in the kitchen. And we wanted to be able to recreate that experience for our residents in Medway. And so, for example, in our assisted living, we have a game room. We have a full game room that has the arcade style basketball hoops, skee ball, full size pinball machines. And so the idea is that if you're there with your family and you're having a good time, why would you stop that to go have a meal? And why wouldn't you allow your children or your parents or anybody to say, you know what, and not disrupt the conversation in the experience we're having? And when people come to visit in assisted living, especially, they always struggle with, well, what are we going to do? Like, how do I bring my children who are 6, 8, and 10, or whatever the numbers are, to go visit their grandmother or great grandmother, and they don't have anything to do? There's nothing that engages them. So we've created throughout the whole campus plenty of opportunities for engagement, and that the alcohol and the liquor license is just one of the many options that we have.
Sure. Now, Matt, before I let you go, I just wanted to ask a little bit about yourself. I know the company was started by your grandfather and then run by your parents, and now you are the leader of this company. While growing up, did you ever work in the company or you worked outside? Just tell us a little bit about yourself.
There's 4 kids in our generation, and I'm the only one who didn't work in the company as a youth.
Okay.
I went to Northeastern University in Boston. My bachelor's is in physical therapy. Mm-hmm. And I always tell at our general orientations, I always tell our new staff that at this point in my career, I thought I'd be the head trainer for the New England Patriots. Okay. And the long story short is that my wife and I came back to work for the company we thought was going to be for 6 months. And that was 25 years ago. And so I started as a physical therapist, working every other weekend, just like everybody else, the lowest seniority in the rehab department, and slowly but surely grew my career from there. Rehab director, I became an administrator, held regional positions with the company, a director of operations, and then eventually became the CEO over the last 25 years.
Okay, Matt, thank you so much for your time, and we will stay in touch, and definitely we are going to invite you next time for our annual Senior Living Summit.
Please, I'd love to attend.
Okay, thank you so much.
All right, bye-bye.
Sure, bye.